From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Mitch Wertlieb. It's Tuesday, September 30th, and here are today's headlines. A Brattleboro nonprofit will open up a family shelter after receiving a surprise $1 million donation. Chloe Leary is director of Winston Prouty Center for Child and Family Development. The group had to close the family shelter it was running after the state motel voucher program ended.
I got a phone call earlier this month saying, I have this money. It's a one-time inheritance. Can you help set up a family shelter? And I said, yes, we can. So it was definitely a surprise phone call.
Leary says they will use the same building the old shelter was in for the new one. And she says it will be open before winter. Leary says the money should cover expenses there for at least 2 years. A seventh incarcerated person in Vermont has died this year. The Department of Corrections announced on Monday that Richard Davis was found unconscious in his cell Saturday at the state prison in Springfield. Medical staff and emergency responders attempted life-saving measures, but Davis was pronounced dead at the prison. He was 78 years old. Corrections officials say his death does not appear to be suspicious. The Defender General's Prisoners' Rights Office and Vermont State Police will review the incident as a standard practice when someone dies in prison. Davis had been incarcerated since 1993 on charges of kidnapping and simple assault. Workers at a St. Albans dairy plant are striking due to contract disputes with their employer. The dairy workers are members of Vermont Teamsters 597. They started striking on Friday against Dairy Farmers of America. Workers want pay raises and larger company contributions to retirement and health insurance. They're also demanding the company eliminate 12-hour shifts. Union President Curtis Clough says the plant has had trouble maintaining its staff.
It can be very intense because it's a 24/7 operation. They don't even get holidays off. They need to offer a competitive wage and benefit package to attract employees in the St. Albans area. It's kind of a tight labor market up there.
Clough says trucks started dumping milk and cream for the facility's vendors on Friday. A Dairy Farmers of America spokesperson says the union, quote, compromised the farmers in this community, unquote. The company says it is taking steps to minimize disruptions. And Jimmy Kimmel Live returned to the air in Vermont on Friday. 7 Days Report's Nexstar Media Group made the decision to air the program on its ABC affiliates, including one in Vermont. Nexstar and Sinclair Broadcast Group, which owns channels that reach close to 20% of American households, refused to air Kimmel's show for most of last week after it returned from a short suspension. ABC owner Disney suspended Kimmel earlier this month following comments he made in the aftermath of the killing of Charlie Kirk. Coming up, from the cost of materials to a volatile market fluctuating amid on and off federal tariffs, the cost of building affordable housing is rising. Vermont Public's McKenna Lefrak discusses what could be done to fill the critical need with the CEO of Champlain Housing Trust. That's after this.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency, where support comes from SRH Law, believing that values and mission still matter. When you need good counsel for your values-based work, whether it's securing our energy future, building affordable and sustainable communities, or advancing a values-led economy, they're here to help you make a difference. SRHLaw.com. Making a difference is our practice.
Affordable housing units can cost up to $600,000 to construct these days. That's according to a cost breakdown from the Champlain Housing Trust. It's one of the nonprofit developers of a new neighborhood of affordable homes in Shelburne called Bay Ridge. Michael Monty is the CEO of the Champlain Housing Trust, and he sat down with Vermont Edition's Michaela Lefrak on Monday to discuss the costs of development. They range from high prices for materials to new tariffs.
The issue has been is that most developers don't know precisely what's going to be happening in terms of materials, and that has been really one of the biggest obstacles. It's really hard to price out things and developments based upon an unknown around that. We just got an elevator in Post Apartments downtown, $17,000 tariff.
Wow.
On that one elevator.
On top of so there's the cost of the elevator, then another $17,000
tariff. For our developments, we typically are doing things that are a little bit more than just building housing. So we're dealing with brownfields remediation. In the cost of Bay Ridge, there is $5 million in infrastructure cost. That went in new stormwater, water systems, roads. a solar facility that's $1 million. So there's a range of things and costs for that particular cost per unit for Bay Ridge.
Break those down for us a little bit more, because the Bay Ridge development, which is this new big housing development in Shelburne, it was built on the site of an old Econo Lodge that the Champlain Housing Trust bought about 12 years ago, I think
2013.
it was. So it's not like it was in, some field in very rural Vermont.
It wasn't a greenfield.
No.
Not even close.
I mean, it's in Shelburne,
Yes.
so there is existing infrastructure there. Why did you have to pay so much for things like new wastewater systems?
There was simply nothing in place that was going to be able to manage what we had that we were building. So the 94 units really required new stormwater, new water systems, and we have a new road going into it. We really just couldn't turn off into this development off of Shelburne Road. It wasn't going to work that way. And the fact that we were doing a level of energy investment that's higher than most, especially the solar field that we built, as well as solar on top of the roofs, which...
Why'd you do that?
Well, two things. One, it's the right thing to do to move towards electricity. Mm-hmm. I think that sort of has some value. It will have some value in terms of the operating cost of the property. So we're doing more development costs up front with a lower operating cost as a result.
I know there are a number of different state regulations in place that if you do X, you'll qualify for Y amount of funding. Was there some sort of?
Well, in all of these projects, first of all, there's in the rental housing especially, very little, not very much state money was involved. There's a lot of leveraging of other tax credits and other programs, and so. There was not all of this was not state property, state income taxes or state property taxes that were going into this development. Much of it was leveraged, and so for even the solar, there were tax credits that were involved, and we were able to get investors to come in to be able to sort of reduce their taxes on that side through the investment of the solar. So that's what we did. We leveraged a lot of money from other sources, including the federal government.
The housing development that we're talking about right now in Shelburne was one of the largest recipients of federal COVID-era funding for housing development. And this ARPA money that was used, it's all going to be spent pretty soon. There's no other funding boost coming from the feds, unless I've missed some big news. And we're going to need an influx of revenue. Now, unless we're going to be raising taxes, where's that money going to come from?
Reducing regulations, having greater density, having certainty, being able to do these things quickly, thinking about different types of materials that could be used in terms of construction are all the right things to do. And at the same time, no matter how hard we do that, we're still going to need to bring in subsidies and to reduce the overall cost to either a homeowner or in terms of a renter. Our concern is really we're hitting a cliff. We will be hitting a resource cliff. We have these homes coming on, but in total about 240 or so homes coming on now, just this year alone with this ARPA funds. Another couple hundred in the queue as well. We're going to need to figure out how to replace that. There was a little bit of money coming out of low-income housing tax credits out of the last federal budget. After that, it was a disaster for most people. But I do think that we're going to need to figure out how to bring in state resources in order to leverage the existing federal resources. These units coming on will have a positive impact in a range of ways, but we're going to need to keep the pace up.
That was the CEO of the Champlain Housing Trust, Michael Monti, on Vermont Edition yesterday. You can find the full interview on Vermont Edition's podcast feed or at vermontpublic.org. Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. We had additional reporting from Howard Weiss-Tisman, Liam Elder-Connors, Adia Golston, and Nathaniel Wilson. Today's episode was edited by Stephanie Colombini, and our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Mitch Wertlieb, and I'll talk to you soon.